I'm with RJ Gale. Help. Those fucking terrorists, they ruin everything. Look to my example and see it as the positive influence it is. And they say I've lost touch with my subjects. Text for help, you cry for help. Help. You mean it, boy. Help. From your diaphragm! Help! Shh. Now we listen. Nothing. I'm afraid they're not coming for you, buddy.
Hello adventure-bound gamers, and welcome to the Himalayas. Here we are on a spiritual mission for family in the fictional locale of Kirat, an island of assortment that houses many delights, wonders and outposts, not to mention the wildlife. As anyone remembers from the 2013 hit FarCry 3 that captivated us with a large and varied open world, a psychotic nemesis, and even more expansive sandbox to run around, glide, jet ski and generally loon about in. The problem was it delivered it with a Ubisoft trait of a thoroughly unlikable and generally whiny protagonist, Jason Brody, thrust into action after his far more appealing older sibling is killed. This then let you loose, able to run around, choose what and how and when you went about rescuing your overprivileged friends from this madman. The issue was, in the scope of a cohesive story, it all fell apart with the open choice in the game, but this was never what it was about, and its aim was to deliver a crazy world that felt alive and expansive, which it most certainly did, interspread with some method acting scenes from the occasional run-ins with head honcho Vaz to refocus you on the task at hand. It really felt new, open and exciting to have this playground to while time away in with no structured path to follow. Well, let's clear up any confusion on the subject of this new saga in the Far Cry world. It is anything but. Following the rule if it ain't broke, Far Cry 4 is most certainly more of the same. Badder, wilder, but not bigger. They say the size of the world is about the same, but far more dense and diverse than before. Remember, this is still a cross-gen game, but they have added a lot more variety and choice now. The story, which is more of the reason you're here, not thinly disguised now, is that you are here to spread your mum's ashes and lay her to rest. A simple funeral service becomes a fight for survival when yet another madman taking you hostage, Pagan Min, voiced by the ever-talented and ever-busy Troy Baker. With you escaping into the world after using your diaphragm to the extreme fails, you are let loose once again in the world to roam, hunt, forage and spread your own form of chaos and destruction on the inhabitants of this fair isle. Now, some things have changed and improved and some have stayed the same. They are that the island is still made up of outposts that you need to conquer and retake back from Pagan Min and the gang. This is done by looking for the smoke blooms across the island and then storming, sneaking but ultimately overpowering these areas until they are yours. Whilst doing this, you again kill and scavenge the local wildlife to form new bags, wallets and gear for yourself, along with trading for new weapons, ammo and upgrades. And you can also pimp your weapons with personalised paint schemes or scopes for your AK-47 or bow and arrow if you want to take the old school Rambo approach. So far, so FarCry. And we know that Ubisoft like to keep costs low and reuse as much code and engine across as many games as possible. You also need to, yep, you guessed it, unlock towers to open up the world in the game so you can get a better lay of the land. From here you can plan your attacks and search more accurately, and as you do you get a bird's eye view of the area, telling in the names in the areas you've discovered now from opening up and unlocking this communication tower, secrets in the rock faces underwater and everywhere else. Vehicles are present again, but now you can command the air as well as the ground. With a micro light now available, this opens up a fast travel option across the map. With you and a friend in tow, armed with a machine gun or rocket launcher, you can rain pain and suffering down from the heavens. This begs the question if you can simply fly to all the comms towers and unlock them out without progressing through protagonist RJ Gale's story. Interesting, and one I would be surprised at as not being picked up with some clever way to force certain tasks to be ticked off before this can happen. This change from the narrative-driven path of 3 has allowed the world and its various distractions to simply feel like that, rather than you have to almost rush headlong into the story parts and feel wrong or out of place for not doing so and freeing your friends. Imagine it as a story of enlightenment for you as the player, learning about this world, an amazing place that the character you play has a link to and discovers it all with you at the same time. The story basically flows at your pace, and this can be either floating like a butterfly or stinging like an elephant. Yep, you can ride into town and mount a huge hulking giant that has a hunger for human flesh and a trunk big enough for any journey. Not only can you smash through compounds like a well-armed duo of Mowgli and Hathi, but you can also weaponise these big beasts to do your dirty work for you, running rampant in the camp, leaving you to either join in with the ruckus or stealth about with your sniper or bow. Tagging guards with your gun or camera is still the same, as is the rush to stop the alarm being triggered as soon as you take the camp. The yokel tribe that you have been indoctrinated into all show up in jeeps to pat you on the back and wave their guns in the air and salute. Would have been nice to show up 10 minutes early, lads, but there you go. These guys from the Golden Path are the group that you join, which basically follows the same path from Far Cry 3. You now join these freedom fighters on their mission. These vehicles also have a few changes along with your flight of fancy choice. The wingsuit returns, which gets more use now with vast mountainous areas abound, along with jeeps and tuk-tuks can all be mounted, even mid-drive, along with the ability, much loved by me, to shoot from as you drive. And who said freedom fighters cannot multitask? You can lay landmines in wait for the inbound support, and the amazing healing abilities of Jason carry over here, with a fast removal of wrist bullets prolonging your hectic splay to social rehousing. This outpost siege was a section I played at the PS4 version a few weeks ago, allowing you the option to sneak into the camp and try to silently execute them, or flying overhead with a nearby microlight and grenade launcher. But that makes you an easy target from the gun mounts on the floor. The third and the most prevailed option at the show was to run in with a gun and then kill the first two guards smoking before nabbing their assault rifles and seeing how far in the camp you could muster. The AI seems pretty solid with not overtly predictable paths and certainly enough on-screen NPCs to make you feel overrun and a challenge to pick them off without biting the big one. The fast healing was helpful, but the camp was no pushover, and in the one go you got it was not long enough for me and I wanted far more time, and it certainly left me with a need to play more, as it is such a complete brain out chaotic fun just like Far Cry 3 was, with elephants and rhinos stomping around. Zip wires also make a return along with the hooks and ropes to allow you to fast ascend and descend to rappel around some of the rockier faced rough areas, and the areas span out from your more Far Cry 3 style lush green and grassed areas with trees where the local farmers tend the land, to the more inhospitable realms of the Tibetan snow whipped mountain tops. Up here the land is harsh and you have to keep an oxygen mask on to stay alive. These, luckily, can be loaned from the local residents irrespective of their votes in the matter. Your needs are greater and your argument far more persuasive. Up here you also get to see even more local wildlife such as tigers and even a more elusive resident rarely seen out of Season Pass. Yep, this game comes with a Season Pass for 24 quid that includes some extra multiplayer options along with a single player mission that lets you do battle with the Yeti of the Tibetan mountains. A Sasquatch season special it seems. Now this does seem a very poor amount of content for the money, which feels like a cheap cash in already, along with the pre-order bonuses for extra weapons and characters in the game. Hopefully they'll see some sense, or I'm not banking on it, and they'll add to this, as this constant need to keep selling games with what used to be extra stuff now held to ransom behind yet more paywalls is getting a little bit too common for my liking. But they're not the only ones guilty of this. So with the main protagonist and the antagonist set up, this just leaves the other cast to fall into place. We get what looks to be some local natives all fighting against Pagan and a possible love interest for our main character. Even though you join the Golden Path gang around the area, this does not have one single leader, and part of the game is the fact that you have to choose between doing one mission for one leader or another. This will then diversify you a little bit more and the groups that you're working for, as their aims are the same to take down Pagan Min, but their paths and methods are not, and this is all relative to what you choose in the game. This branching storyline method may make some differences in the game, and it'll be interesting to see how this pans out with the scriptwriter saying he's worked hard on this to make it more diverse. The cast of characters are the focal point to push your actions along and give you the motivations behind you recapturing this oppressed land and freeing them from the vice-like grip of Pagan Min. The question is, which side of these gangs and which methods will you choose? With a good selection of weapons, grenades, mines and vehicles to hand, along with the use of the local wildlife for and against you, the ever-present danger of death looms always, but the adventurer in you forces you onwards in your mission to take down this oppressor. It's just lucky that it's such a lovely looking place when bullets are flying overhead. Such a vast viewing distance best appreciated from the air, the island spans for many virtual miles, with an impressive draw distance and dense foliage covering the land, home to a veritable menagerie of local wildlife that are both friend and foe in this pixelised zoo. Some show off their impressive next-gen fur technique like the monkey in the opening scene or the tiger, and even the fur trim of the snowpark are sporting this impressive tech, with Nvidia PC users having this further enhanced with some longer sections of hair using their proprietary Hairworks features. As the long-time Ubisoft partnership with Nvidia continues, this game has a few features for the PC players, with most being usable on AMD cards as well. So expect the TX AA solution, which from my Watch Dogs videos you will know helps remove the shimmering or waving effect that you can get in movement. I'm not a big fan as it blurs the image more than FXAA, but it is there if you want it. You got the Nvidia HBAO Plus option, which is really just the same as AMD's HDAO, which is what the consoles will use. You've got PCSS, which is contact hardening shadows that get softer the further away from the source they are, more like real life where the edges blur. It is not a lot and it won't make a world of difference, but the lock-in to using big portions of Nvidia game tech code in Ubisoft games can sometimes come at the detriment of AMD users, as code is geared towards Nvidia hardware, and being mostly with an NDA, AMD cannot work on driver patches until the post-launch, so this can have a negative effect on PC performance in the early days. An NDA being a non-disclosure agreement which basically locks down the developers to not hand over any code to AMD unless Nvidia agree to it, and that isn't going to happen anytime soon. This can also affect consoles to a lesser detriment, but this is not too much of an issue due to the Q&A process they have to go through prior to release by Microsoft and Sony. But everything else is the same across all three major platforms, with nothing yet seen of the PS3 or 360 version, but expect Far Cry 3 levels and an equal sub-25 frame rate. Here on PS4 at least, we get a locked 1080 and 30 frames per second presentation, with a superb HRAA anti-aliasing solution from tech wizard and math guru Michael Drobar, which offers up a very clean and crisp image, certainly not having huge jaggy issues or bad texture aliasing present from my hands-on section at least. With the Xbox One also aiming for the same, it is still a shame that a 60 FPS target was not achieved. As lush and detailed as this game is, I feel that like Destiny, this is a game that could be 60 on both, with a less or greater dips dependent on resolution. But from what I have played, the frame rate was smooth and solid with no cause for concern. Obviously PC has the option for 60 frames or more depending on your hardware, but this game is a lot sweeter now than Far Cry 3 was on the highest setting on PC, so don't expect to achieve equal performance. This will require higher spec machines to achieve the holy grail of 1080-60 than what was achieved last time. With the great fur tech aside, which is a dithering effect which looks very nice, we also have a realistic explosions with plumes of volumetric smoke that even stay within the confines of a cave entrance. Detailed character models and faces with slightly more standard bodies and clothes. Trees sway in the wind, fires burn and illuminate the surrounding areas with a full day-night cycle in this game, which will enjoy some stunning sunrise and sunset. Even across the snow-filled mountains you have particle-based storms clouding your view from hunters and snow leopards, along with loose ice and snow ready to fall or be used by yourself to incapacitate the enemy. The wildlife is very detailed and animated with subtle details on the face and movement, which is also evident on the textures, with elephant skin looking so real you can almost feel the calluses coming from your pad as you play. You can see some very strong areas of pop-in, certainly ambient occlusion pop-in and LOD detail popping in on the trees and bushes as you get nearer to them. What is also impressive in the game is the weather system, with the actual trees moving out of your way as you fly over on your microlight, but also the flags, trees and bushes all swaying and moving realistically based on the weather. With the physics-based weather system present in the game, it looks to affect all areas of the island as you progress through. You get some sweet per object and screen motion blur, along with the day and night cycle and Ubisoft shared techniques. And a lot of the middleware solutions they have in place in their company, they spread across games. So expect some very strong cloth and physics process in this game. Overall, the game looks reasonably impressive. It doesn't look like it's pushing new ground. You can see the standard routine of the engine from Far Cry 3. As you're climbing the tower, you've got the same flat, bland texture rope hanging off the edges, showing you where you need to climb. You can see here that this is identical to as it was on Far Cry 3. They've amended the animation as you unlock the tower at the top, but the zip cord down to the ground and everything else in the layout is identical to what it was on Far Cry 3. You've got the weak animation and detail as you kick the planks out of the way as you're trying to traverse the towers. Generally you've got some weak textures with no tessellation here, looking very flat and bland, and some weird warping effect going on, which looks like some weird tessellation process that's not quite worked out. Again, this is an early version and there was bugs from the preview version they were showing here, thanks to Gamerside for most of this footage. As I've already said, anyone expecting this game to be a complete move on from the original game, they're not going to get that. This is Far Cry 3.5. I know they've already said that that's not what it is, but it really is. That said, I absolutely loved Far Cry 3 and thought it was a really fun game, and I thought the story sucked and the characters, or at least Jason Brody, wasn't a very likeable character in the game. So I'm happy that they've changed it and they've made the story more coherent and more flowing, and they've kept some of the crazy villains. You have got some other characters in this game. You've got the standard African-based war machine wanting to run around and run amok, who also sports some of the worst ambient occlusion hair I've ever seen. And the game does seem to have a lot of bugs present in it on this version, which is obviously a few months early, and I'm assuming they'll improve some of these features before release. That said, I wouldn't hold my breath for everything to be fixed, and certainly the pop and lodding would probably stay static as you see it now. All that said, it does not deter from what will be a very fun open world additional experience of the Far Cry world. So long as your expectations are in check of more of the same with additional bonuses and perks, that is exactly what this game will deliver. And that will be a balls out, to the wall, fun, frantic and exciting open world sandbox that you can hoon around in, play around in and generally experience the story as it unlocks for you. Along with what looks to be an absolutely superb co-op mode in the game where you can play with your friends online for different missions. Also, this will be the first game to use the PS4 sharing option with the keys to Karat. This will allow me to share up to 10 options with friends on PS4. If you have a PlayStation 4, be sure to befriend me. Everyone that already has, I'll give you the option to request that game so you can have a go on this game without purchasing it from me around or on launch. Be sure to check back for my detailed head-to-head across all 3 versions and possibly a last-gen version if I have the time. As always, I hope you enjoyed this preview. If you did, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate each and every one of you that does. Check out my other content. Like this one if you did. Comment below. Keep it in line with the latest trailer that I've released in the theme of James Bond. I've edited together a brand new trailer to get you in the mood. Hopefully you will enjoy it and it will get you stoked for this game when it comes out on November the 18th. As always, you guys and girls take care and I will see you soon on the next one.
Spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong. I grew stronger. I learned how to get along. You see me, somebody new. I'm not that same, that little person still in love with you. Say it felt like dropping in and just expect me to be free, but now I'll say